what to do when your toddler doesn't listen. So if you've ever thought, my toddler doesn't listen no matter how calm I am, especially during transitions, trips, or just trying to leave the house, then this video is for you. Because here's the thing, most of the time, this isn't actually a listening problem. Hey, I'm Heather. I'm a former teacher, behavior specialist, and a twin mom. I also have helped toddler parents for years in my online classes and my free Facebook community. And this is one of the most common concerns I see. I'm going to walk you through 3 steps that create cooperation without power struggles. And they're based on how your child's nervous system actually works. So what are the 3 steps? Step 1 is to regulate before you request. Step 2 is to simplify the language, not lectures, but attunement. Step 3 is increase predictability before the moment when possible. So many parents tell me they struggle with this, that they're talking to their toddler when they're calm and they don't understand why it's making their child's behavior worse. So talking doesn't work when emotions are high because the thinking brain goes offline. There's actually plenty of research to support this, including the work of Dr. Daniel Siegel. So if you're explaining calmly and it's making things worse, that's not a failure. It's biology. So I'm going to give you 2 examples that are going to help illustrate what's actually going on with your toddler not listening. And these not listening triggers are making it feel really tough for you right now. But once you understand them, it's going to become a whole lot easier for you. So the first example is a one-off kind of novel situation. And we're going to look at that and how that can show up with your child. And the second example, we're going to look at something that's very routine that happens in your day to day. And we're going to get into what kind of things are triggered within the one-off novel experience and in the routine experience that is causing the pushback and your child to not listen. So in the first example, we're going to come up with a novel idea, like I said. So let's say you are on a family trip and you are at the hotel. Okay, you're walking through the hotel right now and your child sees a pool slide for the first time that, maybe has a clear glass. They're seeing through the door, they're seeing through the wall, and instantly they lock in on that pool or that slide. Then what happens is you have other plans. It's not pool time yet. Maybe the slide is closed or you're running to dinner. You're heading somewhere else. You got to bring the luggage to the room and you got to get to dinner because if you don't, everything's going to get off schedule. And especially you're trying to be mindful because you don't just have a toddler, you have a baby as well. And you're trying to manage multiple kids at the same time. So we've got to get ourselves to dinner. We don't have time to entertain the pool right now. So what you're going to be seeing when this happens is your child's whining. They're refusing to walk. They're not listening. They're kicking and flopping and melting down. And what actually is happening is their brain just made a new plan. And now that plan isn't happening. So the meltdown isn't about the slide. It's about the sudden disappointment and loss of control. So the pattern your toddler is following is new idea, disappointment, and loss of control. You're going to notice a similar pattern when your toddler spots ice cream or wants that candy at the store. So this is something you might have encountered out in public when you're taking your toddler to the grocery store, and then it becomes a public meltdown, right? So we go from not listening to a public meltdown. And the meltdown isn't about the slides or the candy, even though it seems like that's directly what it's related to. And if we treat it about the slides and the candy, we're not going to really meet our toddler where they are and help them move through it. So what we need to do instead in situations like this is fewer words, even if you're calm, fewer words, calm presence. So if you're already calm, that's great. You're doing a good job. If you're not calm 100% of the time, that's okay too. That's all right. If you already are calm, you weren't doing anything wrong. It's just that maybe you were talking too much. And what we can do is we can keep it simple. So we can name what they're going through, what they're feeling, because now we understand underneath what's going on. And we can also name our limit with them that we're not going to budge on because we're parenting with something called positive discipline, where it's positive guidance and leadership. So the thing that you could say is, you're really disappointed. We're not changing plans. I'm here. So keep it short and concise. Not a big explanation on why they can't have it and then what you have to do next and how you already let them have something earlier or even how they're going to get something later. because right now they're in the here and now, and they are feeling disappointment of the loss of the thing that they saw and they are now expecting or wanting to have. So by saying you're disappointed, we're actually helping them with emotional literacy because they feel upset, but they might not actually understand that they feel disappointed. They're not connecting the two. And so we're helping them see that. And we're also keeping our structure, saying we're not changing the plans. You're allowed to be disappointed, but we're not changing the plans. And then we're also letting them know that we're here for them, that we're not pushing back on them or threatening them. We're not bribing them. And we're not abandoning them and checking out from them emotionally. We're here for them emotionally to support their nervous system, go through the disappointment they feel. However, we're still not changing the plan. And if we say this shortly, concisely, and calmly, this will really help our toddler anchor their nervous system and move on. And once you notice this pattern, this kind of novel one-off pattern where your child feels disappointment over something that they want, you're going to notice it pop up more frequently. And you're going to say, oh, this isn't just one thing. This is happening everywhere. When we go to the toy store, when we go out to eat, when we go grocery shopping, when we're on a family trip. And you're going to see that this is what's happening and this is how we can respond in the way that supports our child best. Now, the second example is more about routine. So it's getting out of the car, getting shoes on for preschool, something that happens in your toddler's day to day. And another really common time parents say this, my toddler isn't listening, is during these routines. Okay, maybe it's getting ready for bedtime. Maybe it's getting ready for bath time, shoes on the morning for preschool. And your child might be happily playing in the back seat with a toy or lining something up or just deeply engaged in their own little world. And then suddenly it's time to get out of the car or time to put the shoes on. And they were doing what they wanted to do. And we are pulling them from that. And what you see when this happens is your child's ignoring you. They're stalling, they're flopping, they're refusing to move. And you want to just say to them, you're not listening. You need to listen. We all know this as parents so well. This isn't defiance. This is autonomy plus the stress of transition or change, a change from place to place or from activity to activity. And this could be triggering your toddler. So often what happens is the brain doesn't get a chance to finish what it was doing. And now your child's body is being asked to switch gears on someone else's timeline. And when toddlers are engaged, their nervous system is anchored there. Pulling them out abruptly can feel like a loss of control. And this is why it hits upon autonomy and independence for our toddlers when we ask them to transition or move between routine or tasks. So this directly explains the shoes, the cars, the leaving the house, and the preschool drop-off being so rocky. So often what happens is we rush, right? Because we know what our time frame is. We got to get them to school. We got to get to work on a certain time. We're on a certain schedule. We got to drop the other sibling off. There's so much we need to do, and we need to keep it on a schedule, right? So we tend to rush. We also can tend to repeat ourselves, thinking if we repeat ourselves, eventually it's going to sink in and our child will actually listen. Or we threaten with either consequences or bribes, or even sometimes parents can use punishment, and it often can make the pushback stronger. Our toddler needs that time to transition, and that's why we can prepare. So we are going to talk about some supportive strategies. When we repeat ourselves, we actually are setting the stage for our toddler to ignore us even more, or they're not even really listening to what we're saying and they just tune us out. That's why there's other ways we can help our toddlers listening without becoming a broken record in the continual repetition of the directions. When we get into threatening, it can feel like the easy thing to do, and no judgment here. Honestly, I'm a twin mom. I get it. So it's easy to get to threaten, like they're going to lose something, or they can't have something, or maybe they're going to lose dessert, or maybe they can't have that ice cream later, right? It's easy to get into that, or even like bribe. Hey, if you listen now, I'm going to get you this. If you listen right now, I'm going to get you a chocolate bar. Or if you listen right now, I'm going to give you a piece of candy. It can be easy to get into threatening consequences or bribes. And some parents might even feel like they want to use some kind of consequence or something like a timeout. The problem is your child might not actually be making the connection on why they're in trouble or receiving like a timeout or some kind of punishment or consequence to the action they actually did. And I am all about optimizing your child actually understanding their behavior, growing from it. So I'm not going to recommend things that don't directly relate to helping your child see what's going on or helping support them so they can listen better. So that's why I don't recommend a lot of those strategies, even though we have all been there and it is okay. The one thing that I do notice that when we use certain strategies like that, we can rely on them, and we also can create cycles where we have to always go there. That's why if parents feel like they need to yell to get their child to listen, then you always have to yell to get your child to listen. That's also something I don't recommend. We can rely on strategies that actually make us do more work in the end and tax us more. And that's what I'm not about. We also don't want to engage in a power struggle with our toddler, and that can make the pushback stronger. So what are some ways we can help support our toddler listen better without creating the pushback and the power struggles? So if we are in a routine transition struggle with our toddler, one thing to do is to help prepare for the transition ahead of time. Now, there are various strategies we can use depending on the situation and what works best for our child's personality, their temperament, and the situation itself, like I said. So sometimes that can be contained choices or giving a visual or verbal heads up or prompts. That's like a reminder that's ahead of time. And letting them finish one small part before moving on to the next, or helping their nervous system anchor before we pull them out of something, or giving them a signal before they do something about the next thing they're going to do. We also can, while sometimes listening can become very stressful for us as parents, we can also take the weight off our shoulders and speak our child's love language, which is play and fun, and infuse play and fun into listening strategies when appropriate. So I'm going to give 5 helpful different strategies that you can use right now. So the first one is first, then. You can use this at any time that makes sense. You can use this during bedtime routine. So first brush our teeth, then we're going to read your favorite book. First, then. Where the then is something desirable by them. It's highly wanted by them and preferred. The strategy pairs the schedule, like brushing our teeth and then reading a book, with something they really want. The something they really want has to be the second part. First, they're going to do the first thing, and then they get the thing they really want. This is different than bribing because we're letting them know the schedule, but we're also leveraging something that they really like to help motivate them. We're also not saying they have to have the perfect behavior like bribing requests. Stop doing that, and then you'll get this. We're saying, if you do this, then we can do the next part of the schedule, which they also really like. I want to say about the first then also works because it is very concise directions and to the point. The second support strategy we could use is giving limited choices. Shoes on first or jacket on first when we're going and getting ready for preschool, for example. So when we say you need to put your shoes on, your child's nervous system is here. I'm being controlled. You're telling me what to do. And if I don't want to put my jacket on or put my shoes on, I'm going to push back. So why limited choices work is they eliminate the need for the yes-no battle. Shoes are happening either way. That's no longer negotiable, and it's not a yes-no response. They're actually actively choosing, which brings us to my second point about this strategy is autonomy is satisfied. Their brain goes to choose instead of defend, and resistance gets redirected. So if they're less likely to want to put on the jacket, if they're anything like my kids, they really don't like to wear their jacket and would prefer not to, even if it's so cold that they really need to. And so if I ask them shoes or jacket, they're always going to most likely pick the shoes. And once they get the first part done, it helps their brain get ready to do the second part, the least likely thing. They already did the shoes, might as well do the jacket as we're getting out the door. And what happens is your child is no longer resisting listening. They're engaged in decision making, and that is regulation. Another thing you can do, the third strategy, is helping give a clear signal that it's time to move on. So that could be the end of the song. We're going to put our shoes on and go to school, or go to the park, or wherever you're headed, or go to the grocery store. So the song ending is a cue for them. It's a prompt. And we also can use it. It doesn't have to be music. It could also be a visual timer. When it goes from red to green, that's when we're going to put our shoes on. It could be a sound timer that goes off, and there's all sorts of fun kind of ringtones that your toddler can even be involved and pick. And then they're taking part in the process, and it's more fun for them because then they're like waiting. They can see the time counting down. You could do that on your phone. There's countdowns on the TV as well. And that can help prepare your toddler visually that we are going to move on and transition. So we're not pulling them out of something unexpectedly. The fourth support strategy you could use is, and this one I've actually seen a lot with the parents that I've helped, okay? And it's this anxiety that your child can have over leaving something that they're doing. And I've seen examples of this happening at school in the classroom when they're playing with a preferred toy, or even happening at home when it's time to leave and do something else. Go to time for lunch. Okay, we're stopped playing, we're going to lunch, or we're going to school, or we're leaving for something else, right? So you can have a special space or place for what they're playing with, and we can anchor that to let them know it's going to be safe. Now, if they have a sibling, then this could be something they also worry about because they worry somebody or a friend, a peer, a sibling is going to mess with whatever they made. And whatever they made is special to them. So we could come up with a special box they could put their item in, a special parking lot. You can get creative and fun with this and involve your child in this. So, for example, let's park your cars right here in your special parking lot so they're ready when you come back. They'll be ready to play when you come back. Or we'll put it in the special box and it will be safe because they'll know nobody will touch it. And then you can open it and it will be right here when you come back. That is building trust in your child's nervous system that you care about what they care about, and that we're also going the extra mile to keep it intact or safe. Or when, we can come back to building that. If it was something deeply calming for them and regulating, and then we're pulling them away from it, like building Legos, for example, we're keeping it intact. It's going to be right there. The Magnetiles, the Legos house that you built, it's going to be right there. I have it in the special tray, the special spot. Nobody else is touching it. And when we're done with doing all these other things on our list, on our schedule, we can come back. It'll be right there for you to play. And the fifth support strategy is infusing some fun and play into listening. Let's take 3 jumps to the door. Can you hop like a frog? What animal do you want to be while we go to the call? You could adapt to make this fun, like a challenge, like how many jumps to the door, or who can jump to the door first, depending on the age and understanding of your child. You can make this fun. And it doesn't mean that we have to use all of these strategies all the time, but use them when it makes sense to you and when it's appropriate. And that can help listening, because our listening instructions can evolve and vary depending on the situation to help our toddler and children become more successful with listening. So sometimes not listening comes from disappointment, like seeing something exciting that isn't going to happen. And that's hard for your toddler, and that underlying disappointment your child feels. And other times it comes from autonomy and transitions, like being pulled out of routine or activity, especially if it was preferred or highly liked by them. Different causes with your toddler may call for different support, even though the behavior looks the same, like flopping and screaming, for example. We also can address our child's individual needs. Is this something that they feel disappointed about? Is it something that they weren't prepared for yet? Is this something where they're seeking independence, and we can help support them with that? We can prepare, and we can be with them in the moment to support them through it. Now we've just gone through all the first step of getting your child to listen better. And the second step, we're reiterating what we've said about keeping the language simple. And I really want to go into a little bit more detail about not lecturing, but attuning to our child. So we want to stop explaining in the meltdown. If we really want our child to listen and they're already visibly upset, we don't want to prolong or feed their dysregulation. Even if we're calm, we could do that if we're explaining too much. Most parents think that calm words will help, and they can, but more words often add pressure. Pressure for your child to understand when they're already upset and they can't. Pressure for your child to listen and understand your logic in the moment when they're dealing with disappointment or loss of control. And that's where their nervous system is anchored, and we're over here explaining something completely different that's not on their wavelength. This is really the difference between adult logic versus child capacity. They do not have the capacity to understand our calm explanations in logic in too much detail, especially when they are trying to regulate their own emotions. This shows up as a mismatch because we're trying so hard to be calm and explain it to them, but it's only making them more upset and the meltdown worse. So we want to try to avoid things like, we already talked about this and you had fun and we chose this because, and we're having this later and this is why. That's too overwhelming. But we could try something more simple and keep our limits and boundaries. It's time to move. I'll help your body. Clarity regulates. I want you to think of it like this. The more clear we are, the better. Clarity regulates. Lectures overwhelm. And the third step to get your toddler to listen better is increase predictability before the moment when you can. So we already talked about some of those strategies earlier in step 1, where we talked about proactive strategies you could use to get your child to listen when moving from one activity to another or one place to another, to give them a cue and a prompt or heads up, right? So when we think about increasing predictability, we are talking about those transitions, those expectation mismatches of our child being able to do something or move on from something. It's when we talk about those next things that our child wasn't ready for yet. So a lot of not listening happens because expectations change faster than a child's nervous system can adapt to. So yes, we can be more concise about the plan in the schedule, like for example, first then, or using a visual schedule. We can do that without overwhelming them with the schedule and all of the details of the things coming up, making it more concise so they can remember it. Because toddlers, depending on where their development is, might only be able to hold on to 2 to 3 ideas. And as they get older, they can handle more. And if we use visual schedules, of course, they can understand more sequence of events. But that is a skill that they're still learning. We can prepare them before the transitions, like I just talked about, and we can give them fewer surprises so they're not caught off guard and they feel like they have a say as well. If your child still wants to keep playing in the pool and you want them to get out and you feel like they're not listening, and we're back at the hotel pool and they want to keep playing. Let's say we're there now and they want to keep playing. It's hard for them to transition to leave the pool to take a break. This can be a common one too. When things are so fun and novel, it's hard to stop doing that. And your child needs a break. They need a break from swimming. They need a break. They need to rest. We're taking a break right now to rest. That's the plan, right? We keep it simple, concise, and certain. When kids feel certainty, cooperation increases. It doesn't mean that they're not going to protest, but it does mean we are strong in our leadership. We are confident and strong in our leadership, and our nervous system is anchored, and they will have to maybe work through it. It might take them some time, but that's going to really help them move through the emotion. And again, we can say, I understand you're disappointed. We're resting. And if we need to, we can help them with prompting. We can, there's many different kinds of prompts, as I've said before. There's visual, there's verbal, there's proximity prompt, like the closeness you are to your child. There's also gentle physical prompting as well. And so that gets us out of always repeating ourselves 100 times and feeling like we're a broken record. Anytime we can be certain in the language we use when we communicate with our toddlers, and any way we can increase predictability for our children, they are going to listen better in the long term. And that builds the trust that we have with our child. So if your child is not listening, ask yourself, are they regulated? Am I using too many words? Do they know what to expect? When toddlers don't listen, it's rarely about defiance. It's about the nervous system, autonomy, and unmet developmental needs. If this helped you see your child differently, subscribe for weekly videos on toddler behavior, calm parenting, and nervous system-based strategies. If your toddler's not listening includes yelling or screaming, don't worry. I've got a full video coming soon that breaks down exactly what to do when your toddler won't stop screaming. And if you just realize this isn't just a listening issue and you want to figure out which struggle you're dealing with, I have a free guide that breaks this down for you. The Tantrum and Behavior Guide, the 7 toddler struggles and how to solve them fast. It's linked in the video description and pinned in a comment under this video. And don't forget to like this video if it was helpful and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on my next videos, which I know are going to be so helpful for you.